deepening commitment. A commitment we make to the rights of all whose inherent worth and dignity are defined, diminished, or destroyed by systems of oppression. And they call us into the practice of looking into our own hearts with courage and honesty.
Welcome to everyone. This is the Mount Vernon Unitarian, previous church. This is the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Church, and we welcome all that are in here and all that are out here to join us for this morning's service. Here we affirm. Before I get to that, this is the first of our more casual summer services. So all of this month and all of August will be in here, and we'll work it out as we go along. So we'll have an opening like this, and then we'll participate in a discussion to be led by one of our members. Me this week, Jim Rose next week. I don't know who comes after that. We'll see who comes after that. We may have a few spots in case you'd like to step up. And this particular summer, we're going to focus on our principles. So each week, we will either talk about them as a whole or talk about them one at a time. When we get to the conversation today, I'm going to be leading a discussion on the first principle. And as you can hear, my voice is going to go, so I'm going to need a lot of help from you all. That's what's supposed to be a discussion. So, here we affirm, love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Guiding words from our angelic poets. Bob found, and I think he used 2 of them last week, a compilation of poems that were written by our members a few years ago. So Carolyn Haken is the only current member, I think, that was one of those original ones. So we decided to take a couple of poems each week this summer and read them. This one is by Bert Corbia. I don't know if anyone knows him, remembers him. Bert Corbia, thank you. Bonding, I thought that was somewhat related to our first principle. An old green apple tree bowed over the barbed wire fence, separating my backyard from the neighbor's fly-faced cows until the sultry afternoon last year when its trunk split wide, succumbing to the heft of the unexpected storm. No glory of lightning strike, no flash of gold, no wonderment. Just a sloppy break and slow fall, announcing the tree had failed to bend. Gnarled bark and leafless branches seemed foreshadows of untimely end. Through winter, I watched the ice-laced whips of bare twig and rued the passing of an elder friend. I thought, too, of the way that trouble foundered you at the peak of your career, how the pressure built, gathered force, and quickly brought you down. No sudden blow, no broken heart, no loss to pin your grief on, just relentless decrescendo. But you have not surrendered to the wistful pull of silence. You have summoned up your right to mend. You have learned to voice and celebrate your ability to bend. This morning, looking out the window, I discovered bright green apples growing on the old tree by the barbed wire fence, separating my backyard from the neighbor's fly-faced cows. So, our message this morning, yes, tea of reading will leave the service. That's what it says in there. So, the next thing in our itinerary is the morning offering. So, we ask that you are as generous with your purses as you are with your time, because you have all been so generous with your time. Do we have a plate?
Right there's the plate, right there, in front of you.
Ah, and I have a volunteer. Thank you both. Now is the time where we do our joys and concerns, and as I'm appointed Bob's representative today, I'll ask you to keep them short, personal. And would you come up to the mic? It's a joy to see you back.
It's a joy to be here. Two things. First of all, people have been asking about my nephew. He was airlifted to Philadelphia, which is closer to his home, to be by his family. He is breathing on his own and is responding with one-word appropriate responses. So that's all we know so far. We know it's going to be at least a 2-year recovery, and we don't know if it's going to be a full-year recovery. But what I will say is I have found personally that the power of prayer has been amazing. I had rabbis from Brooklyn praying. I had St. Mark's here in Stuart praying. I had people all over the world praying for him. And we really did see a remarkable recovery so far that he's doing. Remarkable. And then my second joy is I'm going to be a grandmother. And it's wonderful to be back. Thank you.
You'll notice that we don't have any stones up here, so we'll mentally put a stone.
What? We have someone new.
Oh, yes. Let me say then, it's always a joy when we welcome new visitors, and we have a new visitor. Would you feel like coming up and saying hello?
I'm going to stand right here and do what I used to do in downtown Boston. My name is John Heston, resident in Stuart, Florida for 4 years. Before that, I lived about 10 miles east of that fabled address that you all know, 689 Massachusetts Avenue in Cambridge.
Yes.
So, that's my story, native Californian, and Jim warned me if I talk too long, there'd be a hook that would come down from the ceiling and grab me. So I just want to say thank you for giving me such a warm welcome.
Thank you, John, for being here. Carolyn.
Hi, I'm not going to be here for a month, but don't worry, because I'll be having a great time in Scotland, France, and Amsterdam.
We're all envious of you.
Okay, so I'm gonna outdo that. I'm gonna be in Bali for a month.
Does anybody want to outdo that? Okay, are there any regular joys and concerns?
Very sadly, I'm not going anywhere, so I cannot top that. But had a wonderful 4th of July. Had a big party at my mom's place, and I went out with a couple of friends. It was a lot of fun, and I brought cupcakes.
Any last takers, going, gone? Okay. Now we're going to do Spirit of Life. I see by reading the series of events here that I was supposed to lead the discussion 2 or 3 times ago. So, however, I'm going to make you pay for the service before you get it. So, there's congregational meeting, first Sunday congregational meeting after coffee hour, after the service. So, and we'll discuss the schedule for the week, the summer, and some of the things that are going on right now. Please stay for that if you can. So, I'm going to sit down now. Just a little brute force. this crud that I've had for a couple of weeks, and then yesterday I choked on a cracker and choked on it for about 2 or 3 hours, and so I've got that going on too. So that's why my voice isn't as present as I would like it to be. So our mission this summer, Bob and I decided, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't have to lean for, oh, good. Still good?
Yes.
Okay. So our mission this summer, Bob and I decided, was to talk about those 7 principles which are important to us. They're on the back of our usual program. You've got a small program today because we're in the summer. We're in the abbreviated casual summer. So not everything will go the way it does during the winter when we're in the sanctuary. But this part is to be a discussion. And I thought I would tell you about an incident in my second career that made me understand how important the inherent worth and dignity of every person is. I worked with the homeless mentally ill, and a lot of places weren't very happy to see me bring them in. Some of them came right from the street, and they smelled like they had come right from the street, and they looked like they came right from the street. And because they were mentally ill, they didn't work well with others, like people I was trying to get them benefits from and that sort of thing. So it was always a test when I took one of my guys in to any place, whether or not they were going to treat him with the inherent worth and dignity of every person. So the real trial came when one of my guys broke his neck, and he was in one of those cast iron halo things that was screwed into his head for about 3 months. So for 3 months, he couldn't take a shower. He found a friend's house where he could sleep on the couch, but he didn't have a shower, he didn't have a shirt on, and the guy who did the surgery in the hospital had a private practice office way out in Reston, which is the higher rent neighborhood in the DC area. And that's where I had to take this guy for his follow-on exam. And I was building up in my mind all the way there how they were going to treat him and how I was going to respond. I was all prepared to be angry and get my social worker whip out and whip him into shape. And when we walked in, some of the other clients that were sitting in the room looked at him askance, but when we went up to the window, the young lady who was sitting there looked up and said, "Yes, sir, how may I help you?" And all my defenses just drained away because she did exactly what she was supposed to have done, but what I did not expect. She really realized his inherent worth and dignity, even though he did not look like he deserved it from a lot of people. So that was a learning experience for me, and that's one thing that I had. One experience. I had another experience when I was in the Marine Corps, which was a little bit different. I was on recruiting duty and I was in Boston, and this was in 1970, 71, and it was the height of the anti-Vietnam War protests, and a lot of that was up in the Northeast. It was in California too and other places, but a lot of it was in the Northeast. I was walking down the street in Boston. I've been on so many campuses where people had thrown paint at us, or, just been really nasty and rude. Many of them had fuzzy hair and wire rim glasses because that's what youth hippies were wearing in those days. So one day I was walking down the street and I saw this group of young people with wire glasses and curly hair walking towards me. And again, I had that buildup of anticipation in my mind. They're going to try to knock me off the sidewalk. They're going to say something nasty. Well, I forgot I was in civilian clothes. So, they just walked right past me, and I was left with all that of expectation. They just treated me like any other person, not like what I expected. So my experience has been that a lot of this in recognizing the inherent worth of dignity depends on our own attitude and how we approach things. So that's my start, and I would like to invite some of the rest of you to talk about what your experiences have been. Carol.
Well, I kind of think of this principle as the watchword of my life, and that some of you may know I pretty much dedicated my whole career to working with kids that to some people were hard to love, and with severe disabilities, often unusual behavior, and peculiar looks, and equipment that seemed alien, and so forth. But it wasn't hard for me to love the kids. They taught me more than I ever taught them, and they were wonderful experiences that I'll cherish all my life. But I would say I never had a principal who treated my kids with dignity and respect. Well, that's not true. I had one principal who treated my students with dignity and respect. Everyone, almost all the principals, most of the other teachers were okay, but all the principals and vice principals were very, thought my kids really shouldn't be in the school, and that they were taking up resources that were better served elsewhere.
Hey, that woke everybody up.
That's kind of a different experience. But I have to say, I had one experience that was very different. In one elementary school I taught in Virginia, we had a program we called it Special Friends. But at varying ages of the kids, we did different things. But 4th and 5th graders could give up their recess to come in and volunteer in my classroom. And we had a lot of foreign students because it was Charlottesville and their parents were in the country going to the University of Virginia. So we had one little girl from New Zealand, and she came in, and I had a little girl who had trisomy 19, which at the time she was the oldest living child with it, and she was about 7. And these two little girls, she was nonverbal. She couldn't sit up by herself. She couldn't stand or walk. But they formed a friendship that was true. And they just both flourished under each other's attention. And that was wonderful because she could see the real child through all the complications.
It's a lovely story.
I have to tell something a little different. Okay, when I first came to this country, and I'm a left-leaning person, so I was told many times I ought to go back to England. So I learned to keep my mouth shut. I couldn't discuss not the problems between Southern Ireland and England, or the war. I wrote a letter to the Houston Post shouldn't have done that. That was in Texas, so I don't know, you know, I mean, I presume I love normal, but I love to keep my mouth closed.
I'm sorry you had those experiences.
I wasn't the only one.
And may I say, it's lovely to see you here today.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't know, I think it has to be born in you. My sister was 5 years older than I was, and she had her difficulties. And she sort of seemed to have an invisible sign on her back that said, "Pick on me." And we had a slightly older, very well turned out, articulate girl neighbor. And one day, me as a 3-year-old was in the kitchen with my mom, and I saw this Rosalind person badgering my sister, my then 8-year-old sister. And I went flying out the screen door into the yard as fast as my 3-year-old legs would carry me and said, "You leave my sister be." And Rosalind scuttled on home. I have no idea where that comes from. It has to be from parents or something. So surprise, I became a social worker.
I was just thinking that.
I have a comment on that.
What?
I think that it's, that disrespect and not honoring the dignity of others is learned. I think we all are born pure of heart and able to see the differences in others and accept them.
There's a song from South Pacific that goes, "You have to be taught to hate and fear." So, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we,
Okay,
she
yeah, I
had
heard,
her
she
hand
was
up
there,
first.
she would have.
Yes.
I'll be fast.
No, be fast.
On a much lighter note, you know, I like to send out good vibrations. But recently, when I've seen cars with big American flags flying and Trump stickers, I've been sending out bad vibes. And I realize I've got to stop that. That is not one of my principles, and it's very unhealthy.
Yes, when we wish somebody else, you know, it's like pointing. When you wish somebody else, point to somebody or wish somebody else evil, there's 3 pointing fingers. I haven't forgotten.
Yeah, right. All right, I'm Jimmy, if anybody doesn't know me. All right, so the love thing, let me just first say that the re-election of this man and the bill and several other, and ICE, has shaken me to my core. I mean, it's Mussolini-style fascism. And another piece of context for the slight personal bomb I'm going to drop. It's not, it's about me. Is that years ago I listened to this Jewish professor talk about, it was right around Y2K, it was when the teaching company was called the teaching company, not what it was called, it was these lectures, podcasts, but only they were lectures from actual PhDs and sort of stuff like that. And it was about the intellectual history of the apocalypse. And so he wanted to make it clear in the beginning that he was not endorsing any of this, he was critically talking about it. He said, let me just say, I went to the University of Chicago, and that's where Jews studied Christianity. So going from that standpoint, that was a qualification, but basically he got into the 16th century and how the Parliament started, and they were all wild, evangelical people that we just don't talk about. It was fascinating, and just listening to him. So then later on, I had, personal difficulties, 12-step stuff that, they may emphasize higher power and all that, which they allow you to make anything up, which is perfect. So, it could be your phone, could be your heart, no, I'm just joking. But here's here's a funny thing about Elon Musk. Don't like him, but he co-opted Jewish terminology about non-practicing Jews often call themselves culturally Jewish. He called himself culturally Christian. The reality is I am too. And if I don't understand that, which I'm trying to, I'm reading it, and it's escapist for me because it's so different than any other book. And this time right now is so crazy that I'm seeking escapism like that. If we don't understand that, to me, I don't think we can understand where we've gotten. So I have fully taken the identity I'm wearing a cross because subverting from within, that's what we're down to. We gotta get down to their level. They're not emotionally intelligent.
Jimmy, can we keep that about you and your experience rather than talking?
Yeah, we as in the people that I'm talking to, let's put it that way, yeah. Not even here, because I don't really come to the church. I love this church, I'm just busy, I'm sorry about that. But that's the message anyway, so, yeah.
John?
I'm sorry if this parallels your story, Pat, but several years ago, we spent the summers in North Carolina in a tiny house, 650 square feet, with my father-in-law, our 2 dogs, and his cat. His cat was not the most tolerant creature on the earth, but she was sneaky. And so one day, in the middle of the living room, the cat decided to say very ugly words to my older dog. Very ugly words. And I was sitting on the couch with the younger dog, who was like 2, very young, and the submissive. And she watched this, her older sister getting harassed like this, and she jumped off the couch and she went after that cat. Not physically, but just yelling. and we all of a sudden, oh, you do have some gumption in you. And it was just a wonderful moment of animals teaching us something. On the other hand, you probably better ways to do that as human beings.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about dignity and people's worth and all of that, you kind of have to be prepared for various interactions with people. Like, when I heard this person talking about being from England and people saying go back to England and all that, I thought of how there's this unbelievable provinciality that seems to come through so much, and I don't know if it's unique to American culture or not. But I can remember growing up in what was then a moderate-sized town in Connecticut, Fairfield, Connecticut. And there are different sections of the town, like anywhere else. There were some extremely rich parts of town, which have only gotten richer. And then there were other parts of town, middle class, blue collar, whatever. And I grew up in a blue collar neighborhood. And it was a section of town known as Tunx's Hill. And I can remember for the first time somebody saying, "Oh, you're from Tunx's Hill." Well, you live 2 miles away. What am I missing here? But they were from Greenfield Hill, so they were a whole different breed, and of course they were genetically better and superior and all that. And I started to feel this thing that people have this identification, right? You get people in New York, well, I'm from Brooklyn. Well, I'm from Canarsie. Oh, okay, And then it was years later when I went to other parts of the country, both as a little boy and as an adult, where there are parts of the country that welcome the fact that you're from somewhere else. They think it's really cool, that it adds to their richness of their culture and their life. So I just think you have to be ready for whatever people may do. But to go back to wherever thing, obviously we know is not very nice, but it's something people do, unfortunately.
Tia, I'll come up because I'm in the corner. I sit on the board of a charitable organization called CFC Loud and Clear. And what we do is we help people in addiction, typically heroin and alcohol. And what's fascinating to me is, I call them kids, anybody younger than me is a kid, so it gives a pretty wide range of people. They would come to us in the throes of addiction, and they would be dirty, they would have tattered clothes, they would have missing teeth, and we actually picked them up and got them sober and put them in sober living houses. But one of our biggest challenges was finding them employment because no one wanted to employ them. Many of them were felons, many of them didn't have driver's licenses, but they were great people that just needed a second chance at life. And we owned our own business, and I personally hired 5 of them. And they were 5 of our best employees. They were very loyal, very, very loyal, very bright, very hardworking, but most of all, they were so gracious of us giving them a chance at life and of finding their way, earning money, and eventually we were releasing them into the world. And they are so successful. Honestly, we did lose one to addiction, but we have an 85% long-term success rate. And if you met some of them while they were in the throes of addiction, you might run the other way. But if you could see the transformation that they can make and become real, active, working adults, it is just an amazing process. And I'm just so happy to be part of that organization.
Yeah, I think, yes, some good stories. And a lot of little things that I've experienced and witnessed and even participated in and could feel bad about, how I was acting in one particular way. But one time I was in the hospital for a minor thing and in the emergency room, and it was crowded, and I was just paying attention to a homeless person. It was obvious that somebody that was destitute. And the hospital, the paramedics, everybody was wonderful to this person. And I was watching this person just absorb it like a sponge, and not overly expecting any more than what he was getting. And it was just an interesting thing to watch that, and to see people reach out to somebody.
I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, but from this bit about the inherent worth and dignity of every person and stuff, and how hatred is learned. Okay, I like what you said about that. I don't know, it's about 25 or 30 years ago, there was a series of books around Chicken Soup for the Soul or something like that. Yeah, they have some good little stories in there. And there was one story about a youngster, maybe 4 or 5 years old. We couldn't wait to be alone with her newborn sister that the parents brought home. And the parents couldn't figure out why she was looking to be alone with her new little sister that came in. And when she finally was given a couple of seconds, they kind of spied just to see what the interest was. And they heard her say, "Quick," to this little infant that just came from the hospital. And the older sister said, "Quick, tell me about God, because I'm forgetting." Just a wonderful story.
Wasn't that book written by you? Wow.
It was in and around the Palm Beach.
Sure.
Robert Falcon.
They were added in collections of stories.
Yeah, so, yeah, so they collected and put together.
Jim?
Good morning. When I lived in Seattle, I took a class. It was like an adult intentional class, and it lasted an entire year. And the first day, the facilitator had about this many people. It was about 40 people. I don't remember what we are there, but there was about 40 people in the program. 20. But okay. And the first thing he did, it wasn't like icebreaker, like go and talk to somebody. He said, "Everyone stand up, and before you sit down, go to every person in the room and look into their eyes until you feel the moment that you felt like you connected with them." And it took about a half an hour. And you kind of did an inventory of who was in the room and who you did. And it was amazing to me what I felt emotionally. Just, is it visceral? just by connecting in that way with no words, no anything, but it was the same energy in everybody's eyes, and we all sat down, and then we began the class for the year. And John is with us today, and he's blind, and our Jack, who was the facilitator, was also a consultant for people that were downsized executives that no longer they had to change their careers, devastating. And he was very successful. He said, because when I sat with them, he said, I connected my heart with them. And that's where we began, because it was such an emotional thing. So I just wanted to share that the ability to connect and see the worth of people through looking in their eyes and hear them in silence.
Yeah, I would echo that, in that somehow, I don't know whether it's God or higher power or just nature, but so many children with disabilities have beautiful eyes. It's, many autistic children have beautiful eyes. And I don't know why that is, but you can look at them all day.
That's lovely. Judy?
Teachers often get a bad rap, and I'm a retired school teacher, and part of my experience was teaching in Houston, Texas, at a couple of inner city schools. One of those schools was a mix of, I guess it was kind of half black, half Hispanic, and we also had a lot of refugees. We had Islamic kids, Islamic teacher. The head of my department, she was black. The principal was white. It was a real mix. It was a wonderful mix. Houston is that way. What I want to say about that regarding this topic is all of the teachers were so committed to helping each and every child. They were doing the best they could in those circumstances. You know, I had a mother come to me once, I don't know, she had a couple of jobs, I think one might have been as barmaid, and she asked me if I could get her son, who's a 5th grader, to take a bath. Yeah, and so we had a talk, and I think he was sneaking out and going and sleeping with a girlfriend, but, you know, it was that kind of, you know, population. And so, I mean, kudos to those teachers there in Houston, Texas, that they just, they honor the inherent worth and dignity of each of these children.
I think maybe unless somebody else has a burning need, that's a very good note to kind of wrap the discussion up on, because these services during the summer are supposed to go a little shorter. And I want to make sure you have attention left to spare for the congregational meeting, which we will have in about 20 minutes or so. So I think what we need to do now is blow out the candle. Here we go. I learned from you, brute force. Okay, so I will, well, thank you. So, go in peace. It's coffee hour time.